Hello, welcome to Q&A with Paul. Today I have a few questions here. I will start with the first one, which is actually quite an interesting question. The question is, what is the best way to get into someone's reality? Meaning, people can get stuck in how they see the world versus how it is due to beliefs, patterns, etc. Any insights into how to best channel meeting people where they're at and helping them to break the programming for who they are told to be? Thanks. So there's a number of questions in there. What is the best way to get into someone's reality? Well, you can't ever really do that. I understand the question, but there's no way you can actually fully enter into someone else's reality without becoming them. It's the same issue with God. You can never know what God wants until you become God, and when you become God, there's no you there. So the point being is, the best we can do is to listen to them, pay attention to what concepts and ideas are alive in them, are important to them, look at their beliefs and their behaviors and how they live their life. There's an old saying, never judge a man or woman by the creed he or she professes, but by the life they lead. So it's very hard to live somebody else's life. So we can only, shall we say, step into their reality by imagining what it would be like. For example, what would it be like to be a dogmatic Christian? Or what would it be like to be a hardcore atheist? Well, you would then have to say, what would I have to get rid of in my own reality to make room for that existence? And how would that feel to me? How would my relationships change? How would my sense of myself change? How would my perception of the world change? So that's probably the closest you can get. I mean, when I'm coaching patients and clients, I'm engaging their reality and learning from them about the pros and the cons of living that reality. Usually there's cons, or they wouldn't be asking for my help. Then the next aspect of the question is meaning how people get stuck in how they see the world versus how it is due to belief patterns and etc. And then insights in how to meet people where they're at. We all have these belief patterns, and we all have our unique picture of the world. Each soul is 100% unique. So even in a bunch of people that are practicing the same religion, going to the same school and the same degree program, etc., they're all going to have a unique worldview. Your worldview is as unique as your fingerprints. But I understand the question. It's how to meet them where they're at and help them break programming. We have to be careful, because we can think that we're helping someone break programming while acting out our own programming. In other words, you could be a Scientologist and think everybody else has got programming that you got to break, but a lot of people would look at you and say, well, you're in a cult, Scientology. We want to just be aware that the best thing we can do is see what it is that is driving them, what inspires them, what gives them a sense of what is real, what's important to them, what is their dream for their life, what are they creating, what's important to them that inspires them to live and to love, and how do they relate. And all we can really do is compare that to our own experience, and again say, well, how does that differ and what's the outcome of that? We saw during COVID that there's very, very different worldviews, very different values, and very different realities right within one family, and even amongst husbands and wives, amongst siblings when they're old enough to be involved in making these kinds of decisions, which today they've taken that away. Now, the last part of the question is, and how do we help them break the programming for who they are told to be? Really, when you're breaking programming for who someone's told to be, you're either dealing with parental programming or you're dealing with cult programming. And unfortunately, that includes university degrees and programs for many, many reasons it would be too long to get into. But the thing that we have to remember is, one, before you can even embark on that journey without just getting yourself into all sorts of challenging situations, is they have to request the help from you. If you go to a cult and start convincing people that they're in a cult, the first thing they're going to do is tell you that you're crazy, you're the one that's lost, and you're the one that needs help. That's the nature of someone that's programmed. So step number one is they need to openly request or ask for help. Second of all, we need to identify what aspect of what it is that they're believing and doing or practicing that's actually causing more challenge and stress in their life than there would be if they were not believing, seeing, acting, and doing things in those ways. Now, I'll give you an example of how I deal with this, because I have to deal with this as a therapist all the time. Probably the number one cause of what I find behind people's diseases, relationship problems, financial problems, and many other things is religious programming. Now, even though having studied world religion and mysticism and many other things, I often have the urge to say, well, you really ought to just stop going to your Christian pastors and temples, or your Jewish temples and your Islamic temple meetings, etc. I mean, that's easy to say, but that's not going to work. You can't push people up more than one structure stage of consciousness at a time. So structure stages are just models for how consciousness grows and develops. A simple example is I consciousness of the child, we consciousness, the importance of realizing that other people have needs. Then world consciousness, which is you recognize yourself not as just a person or as just a part of a relationship, but as part of the world. And finally, cosmo consciousness, which means you see yourself as a citizen of all that is, as an expression of all that is. So when we're going to help someone, to the degree that we can work within the belief system that they're in, then they're much more likely to participate. And a lot of the problem is not the individual themselves. It's friends and family members that also carry the same programming. Because even if you do a very good job using another belief system or another approach or something that you think brings them more in touch with reality, the first thing they're going to do is tell somebody about it. And if it's anybody that's connected to the source of the programming, such as the religion or the cult, they're going to get attacked. So even if they believe you and they want to do it, most of them aren't evolved enough in their own self-development or ego development to have the ability to withstand the peer pressure. And if a person is not ready to fully individuate into an adult, then they're going to fall right back into the old habit pattern out of a need for a parental figure to have people that give them a sense of belonging, who give them a sense or a reason for being, to have that sense of participation in something beyond themselves. So what I typically do, for example, is oftentimes patients that come to me with various problems will start citing Bible passages. And so what I do is I invite them to get a broader perspective or a different viewpoint. And so I go through my library and I will find Christian mystics, for example, Meister Eckhart, or Saint Hildegard of Bingen, or various other ones. And then I will say, here's a passage by this Christian mystic that's addressing the same issue that scripture you just quoted, but from a much broader perspective. So I try to actually take them out of the dogmatic approaches to a given religion or belief system into approaches that are already well established by those that are more spiritually or psychologically evolved within their own belief system. That's the best first step. Then from there, I stay, now that you've got this particular view, we'll say Christian view, why don't we take a look at, say, an Islamic view or a Jewish view? And I still stay within the Abrahamic religions. So then again, it's not too far of a step out, because if I say, let's go to Taoism or Shinto or shamanism, it's too big of a jump. You lose the people. And again, it's often not the person, it's the peer pressure that they have to deal with. But remember, the first thing you always want to do is identify what a person's dream is. What is their dream or their goal for learning more, for growing? Why do they want your help? If you just try to apply this stuff to people just because you think they're wrong, you'll probably end up finding yourself wounded or dead. Remember, Jesus' own people were the ones that crucified him, so you got to be careful. So those are some basic approaches to these issues. These are serious issues. One of the biggest challenges is the more brainwashed somebody is, the more they're programmed to reject new information. So Ken Wilber showed, for example, that you can put people at the fundamentalist level of psychological development in front of scientifically valid information, and they won't even read it. And remember, the papacy would not even look through Galileo's telescope. They didn't want to see the truth. They just wanted to stick to their little business plan. So we have to take this one step at a time. We've got to be conscious. We want to find out what the person's dream or goals are for why they want your support. And then we got to take them one step at a time. And we have to always consider how much time do they have, how much willingness do they have, how much energy do they have? If finances are involved, how much financial investment can they make in the process? And what resources do we have available to us? Those are the key program design factors you have to be aware of when you're designing any kind of healing program, conditioning program, life change program, or you'll lose somebody because any one of those factors, if not addressed, can lead to an abortion of the process. So, good question. Hope you find the answers helpful.